Good morning, I'm Chris with Everyman Overland. Coming at you today from the driveway, and in just a second I'm gonna drive over into the shop, but let's go ahead and start here. Today, it's all about lights. It's about that light and these lights up here and all these lights going on. Normally the way I do this is I say, hey, I've got this idea and here's what I'm gonna work on, and then I kind of show you I'm working on it, and then I show you the result. Well, I did that like a week ago, or maybe it's 2 weeks ago at this point. And as I started all the video editing, I found that all of the video that I had taken that day didn't have any audio. So here I am doing this again. Yay. I'll go ahead and show you today, and I'll kind of get started about here's what I did. Here's what I've accomplished so far is I had to carve up these light pockets to get it done. But I installed these Auxbeam 4-inch driving lights here. I installed some LED Colight. These are just labeled as motorcycle driving lights, and hopefully you can see them from there. They're really hard to see because they're tucked back in there, but man, they work good. I installed these specialty lighting ditch lights up here on the top of the bumper, and I also replaced the headlights with an LED Colight, like it's a full replacement projector. Detail is hard to see from there. Like I actually had to pull the little shroud thingy that sits in there to bend it, and it was a lot of work. And the two things that I still really kind of need, number one is rock lights. I started installing a set of rock lights and I got them, but these rock lights would only function if you used the app on your phone, and there's this little remote. I don't want none of that. I just want to hit a button, have them turn on. So I've ordered some different rock lights that I'll be installing here in a few minutes. The other thing that I wish that I had, I still need some big spotlights for the front. Some 7-inch or 9-inch, probably 7-inch, because I think 9 inches is just a little bit too big for the available space here with my ARB bumper. I'm a little undecided. I think they look cool as hell. I don't know that I really need, after installing these and having lived with them for a couple weeks, I don't know that I need those big flamethrowers on the front. So let's go ahead and get this into the shop. Let's get the new rock lights installed, and then we'll go over exactly all of this, and I can show you how it all works, and I've got nighttime footage, and we'll see you in just a second. Okay, so I have one headlight completed. So I am swapping out, and it's dark in here, so it's really hard to see, but the actual like filament bulbs, the component that's in there, not the whole headlight housing, I'm just changing out the bulb that goes in there. Well, with these new bulbs, as I showed you earlier, they've got that huge projector that's built into it. You have to remove, see if we can see in here, there's actually like the center like shroud that goes around the factory bulb. You have to remove that because the new bulbs actually project forward. These are designed to reflect back off of the whole housing, that reflector back in there, and then that shines forward. These bulbs here, that are again, real hard to see, they project forward. So let's take a look, and even though it's the middle of the day, you can see the window behind me. Real easy to see the difference between the two when I shine them on the closed door. Okay, so here, you can see a drastic difference between the two. This one over here on the left is the factory one, and the new LED Colight is on the right-hand side. Not only can you see the difference in color, this is a much whiter, much bluer light, and this is much more yellow over here, but you can see that the new one has that very like razor sharp cutoff, so even though it's brighter and throws a lot more light down range, it's not going to blind people because you can adjust that so that that doesn't shine in people's eyes. Whereas the factory light, most of the light is here, some of it's here, some of it's there, it just kind of willy-nilly spreads it all over the place. Now let's take a look at the high beam. So with the high beams on, with this type of headlight setup, it retains the low beam on both of them. But you can see that very, very bright spot right in the middle, and with that new LED Colight, that is going to get a lot more distance, a lot more range with that spot versus the high beam on the factory one. Again, it's just throwing a lot of light out there. It's not focused, it's not right where you want it, it's just out in front of the vehicle. So I'll go ahead and flip them back and forth a couple times. Low beam, high beam, low beam, high beam, and you can see the severe difference between the two. I'm here to tell you, it's a lot of work getting that little reflector out. It doesn't fit. They put the reflector in there and then they glue the housing together, and so you have to rip it all apart. But I'm gonna go ahead and pull this one apart, get that one ripped off so I can get that done, and we'll finish putting all the different lights across the front. All right, so just to show what you got to go through to get this out. Like this whole thing, like this is metal. This isn't some silly little plastic thing. It's decently built. I mean, it's a Toyota, right? But you got to get in through that little hole, right? And you got to take your pliers or doing whatever you're doing, and you've got to smash and crush this thing up to the point where you can sneak it back out through that hole. And now we have to cut this little arm off because that hole, here, let me get a pointer. Because this hole right here, that holds the screw, and it holds a little bracket that holds this wire to hold the headlight in. So we have to modify all of this to make these bulbs work. And from what you just saw up against the wall, so far I'm pretty happy. I think this is going to be worth it. But this is a lot of work. This is a bunch of work. This isn't a just unplug it and plug the new one in, right? There's a lot going on here. Okay, so I've got the pods. You can see that pod is done there. You just watch that one being done, and this one's in here. And apparently I jumped the gun a little bit installing that one because I forgot I have to drill holes in the bumper from the ditch lights. If I'm drilling a hole right here and I got to put a bolt in the that's going to be in my way. So I'm going to have to take that one back out. But I've kind of decided upon, I think right about there, is where I want the ditch lights. It's not blocking the headlight. It's not blocking the turn signal. Is actually only all the way out here. This is all just reflector. Nothing happens in here, just right there. So if the light's there, it can project out and do exactly what it's supposed to do, but it's not blocking anything up there. So I'm gonna just kind of measure right about there, take some measurements, copy it over to the other side, and make some holes. All right, so they're all in. Ditch lights up on the side. I got the main driving lights there, and the fog lights, you can barely see them, but they're tucked in there. And I'm pretty happy with this look. We're still missing a couple, great big spotlights here to put in the front. At some point, I'll grab some 7-inch lights and put them in there, but for now, we're gonna live with these. We're gonna see how it does. And now, all I gotta do is wire them, right? Because we can't have wires hanging out like that. That's no good. Okay, so like a second good morning to you here. You have a wardrobe change because today is tomorrow to yesterday's today. What you started today, so today's tomorrow, or yesterday all at the same time, I don't know. When you wire these things up, regardless of if you bought these silly Chinese lights, and look at the size of the wire on that, like that's horribly tiny. It's teeny tiny. I always like to use the phrase, small wires start fires, right? Don't ever use too small of a wire. And if you think, well, maybe I'm gonna need whatever, there's never a disadvantage to using too large a wire other than the fact that physically it's just larger, it weighs more. And so if you have a whole bunch of really heavy wire, I mean, maybe you could weigh your truck down, you need a lot of wire to weigh down a truck, but it's also bigger, it's harder to get it through certain holes and bend it around things or whatever. And that's the only disadvantage. As far as the electricity goes, it's not like, well, I used too large a wire and so now it's not flowing. No, it's fine. It won't affect you negatively at all. So always caution, always err on the side of too large a wire. So as I start wiring all this up, I do have a couple of these Auxbeam wiring harnesses that I do plan on cannibalizing at least one of these to run the wires up. I bought a big spool of 12 gauge. This is kind of actually like speaker wire sort of, but it's just twin wire. The red and the black are together. Normally when I wire things up like this and I wire, lights, whatever, you really only have to carry one side, like you've got a positive and negative. And you can run just the positive out to the light and then take the ground or the negative off of the light and just put it to a ground somewhere near the light. And that's typically how I do things. In this installation, you can see here all of these, for all of the switches, and there's 8, so there's 16 ports over here. Each one of the light fixtures has positive and negative. And I'm a little unsure of why they have all the negatives there as opposed to just, run it to ground out by the light somewhere. I don't know if it has to do with the flashing function or I'm not sure why it does that. But for this specific installation, instead of grounding the lights out next to the light, I'm gonna go ahead and run all of the wires back here, and I'm gonna ground everything out through the switch box controller itself. So just a couple notes, as I am wiring all of this mess up here, you can see I've taken all of the lighting cables and I have zip tied them together so that they're here. Here's where the connectors are, and I zip tied on each side of them so that everything stays nice and secure. I'm also running all of the cables through this conduit sheathing, just to kind of make everything easier to keep track of. As it goes across the front of the truck, it'll be really easy to identify, hey, this is what the wiring is in, and this stuff kind of opens up, separates real easy, so you just get it on there. I'm gonna run a zip tie around the nose of it and probably 2 or 3 down the length and then one at the other end. The harnesses, I'm gonna secure up here like this. I'm gonna zip tie these to a couple of different wire clamps that are already up there, so those will stay still and secure, nothing will be able to grab them or rip them apart, and that'll be nice and safe. And then that whole cable bundle can go across through there, and I'll zip tie that to a few things along the way. I've got the relay box now wired in, and it's a spaghetti mess down here. This here actually goes into the cabin. That goes and hooks up to the switch panel, and I haven't wired that yet. I'm gonna run that inside the cabin next. I'm leaving this one open because that's for the rock lights that I just haven't had a chance to install yet. And then this one down here will be wired up to the battery so that I can kind of control the battery as I like. So you can see you have all of these different terminals here, and each positive and negative goes to one set of lights. These are all fused here, so you've got the first 2 are 30 amp, the second 2 are 20 amp, the third are 10, and the last 2 are 5 amp, which for what I'm doing here should serve us just fine. I left the very first one open, another 30 amp, for large lights that will go on the front. I'll get some nice big 7-inch lights to go on there. With these little terminals like this, you unscrew it and there's a little thingy in there, you put the wire in, you screw it back down, tightens it up. Probably looks a lot like exactly what you would expect. What I will tell you is it's a little shallower and it doesn't seem to like the 12 gauge wire. It's just a bit on the big side. 12 gauge is acceptable here, 10 gauge would not be, it just wouldn't fit. You're probably better off with like a 14 gauge. I will also say that if you strip the wiring a little bit less than you think you might need to, it tends to fit better. You can see where we've got a little bit of copper showing out the end of each one of these wires. You don't want a couple of strands going and coming across here and then welding each other together. So now I can go ahead and pop the cover back on this, and I should be done here under the hood. So you can see the wiring loom down there, comes down up under here. You can see it there. Runs across. All of the wiring from here comes together, and that's where the 2 sides meet up underneath here. Everything is zip tied, everything is in place. And then you can see the wire loom here that runs across. I've got it zip tied there, here, 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 all over the place. But it's nice and tucked out of the way. Nothing, you don't have to worry about it. If you ever need to service the winch, if you have to pull the, anything, the horns, the headlights, whatever, it's out of the way, it's protected, and it's held still so that it won't bounce around while you're going down the trail and get tore up. I'm gonna put the grill back in this thing. I'll put the control box on the inside, kind of run that one cable that needs to be run through, and then we'll go see how these things work. Okay, so to mount the switch to the dash, I chose this spot over here, just kind of off to the left. It's real easy to reach. It's right off the, where you're flicking your high beams off the turn signal switch there. Now, normally, I wouldn't recommend using like a sheet metal screw or something like that and just diving into nice looking interior panels to screw things down. But somebody already broke this panel. I'm not naming names, but he looked a lot like me. Shortly after I bought the, it wasn't me, but shortly after I bought the truck, somebody that looked a little bit like me was trying to pull this panel off to do something else, and it broke. So I don't feel at all bad about drilling a few holes in it. I drilled a hole in the side that you can see there for the wire to run into. I just think it looks kind of clean. Now I just need to bring the rest of the wire in from outside and just run it up through the dash to right here, where this will all plug in and meet up, put it all together, and it'll be nice. Okay, so here is the new set of rock lights that I will be installing today. These are the Aura Photon white rock lights from Auxbeam. You can kind of see it there. I picked these up on Amazon, and it's just a set of 4. Initially, I really kind of wanted to do a set of 8 so I could do a set of lights in front and behind the front tire and in front and behind the rear tire. For right now, I'm just going to do the 4, and I'll just do in front and behind of the front tire, take it on the trail and kind of see how it goes. Maybe I don't need a whole set of 8. Maybe the 4 will work fine. I know the packaging doesn't quite matter. Like, send me something that works great, whatever. But they do have fairly nice packaging. Everything's packed in here fairly well. They gave me about 700 zip ties, because who doesn't need more zip ties? A couple things that really helped me decide on I want to try these is, number one, they are a 5000K. And if you know about the Kelvin scale with lighting, you know the difference between a 5000K and a 3000K and a 6000, whatever. And I really like the fact that they're a 5000K, which is a nice, natural, bright white, as opposed to the kind of more bluish in a 6000K that you typically get, like, you know, these headlights that I've got are 6000K, and these lights up here, they're 6000K. I don't know why the 6000K is so popular. I prefer the 5000K. These are, they at least claim to be a 5000K, so that's a good thing. Another thing I like about these that should make mounting them a whole lot easier is they come with magnets. So they include these little magnets that you can see right there that are kind of screwed onto the side, and that allows you to just kind of put them wherever you want. So number one, it'll be nice to be able to just mount them up. I don't have to drill holes. I don't have to put screws in. It feels as though the magnets are perfectly well strong enough that these aren't going to, actually pretty hard to pull off, that these aren't just going to fall off on the trail at some point. So I should be able to put them anywhere I want. And if I'm out on the trail, I'm like, boy, I really wish I had to put the light over here. I just take it and like, it's over there now, right? So that's kind of a nice feature, being able to mount them with those magnets. And if at some point I look down and one of them's dangling like this, they gotta put screws in. What are you gonna do? You can also see that they don't aim just straight down. They're kind of canted off to the side a little bit. And so that gives you a lot better spread of light. So as I put these up underneath the truck, it should be a lot easier to find a spot to put them where they really shine, you know, where I'm gonna need them. I'm not gonna put these up in the wheel well for things that look pretty. These are built very well. I assume that they're an aluminum casting. It may be a steel casting, but I'm pretty sure this is an aluminum casting. You can see that they've got these little notches in them right here so that the cable will lay down, so however you mount it. Now with these magnets, there's plenty of room for the cable to go wherever it wants, but if you surface mounted this to something with screws, that little notch just lets that cable fall right through. It makes mounting them a whole lot easier. That's nice, I like that. So for now, let's go ahead and get these things mounted up under the truck, get them wired into the switch box. We'll see how they work. All right, so here's what I came up with. I actually added a small L bracket up behind the light up here, screwed that into the frame, and then just drilled a hole, and I'm actually, you know, this is just kind of sitting up here against the bottom of whatever this little metal piece is right there. I'll probably double up on the zip ties just to make sure if one breaks, we don't lose the light. But that's about the best I came up with. And it's not exactly what I would want it to be. And I mean, I think ideally you'd want it out here somewhere. You know, you'd want it 3 feet away from the truck shining down. You want guys out there with flashlights or whatever it is. But for what we have access to, I think this is going to work. And we'll see how it works. And it's zip tied in. So if it doesn't work, I'll just change it. All right, so here is what I'm sideways. Here's what I came up with for the bottom. I am going to put these up here. Now you can see I've actually already put the screws into this one. Here I was talking about how cool these magnets are, and I didn't use any magnets anywhere. So I've mounted these up into, you know, the inside of the rock rail there. I think these are gonna be good. These should have enough room to shine forward and shine backward a little bit. They won't be able to shine off to the sides too much because these bars are in the way, but really this will illuminate the ground under the truck. And I think that's really what's most important, is being able to get the ground all down here all lit up so that, you know, we turn all this on and the spotter can see where the tires are going. And if I'm hanging out the window and looking down, I can see where the tires are going. That's what's important here. My concern in putting them right here is rocks come up off of here. So this area in here ends up packed with mud a lot. So I don't know how well this is gonna work out, and I may end up having to move them again. We'll see. I'm hopeful, but we'll see how this goes. And maybe if nothing else, if I'm out on the trail, I can just, you know, reach up inside of there and kind of wipe them off if they get a little bit muddy. But as you look down here, anywhere I try and put them, like if I tried to put them up here, like there's these big brackets here, so it can't shine forward and back, and it wouldn't be able to shine to the side here. If I try and put it down here somewhere where it would be able to shine, look at all these scars on here. Like that, there's no way it would ever live if I tried to put it down here. It'll just get ripped off. So putting it down in there, I think is just kind of the best option at the moment. We'll see how well it works out. And if it doesn't work out, I'll move it. Okay, so the last thing that I want to do here, the last kind of test I want to make is how much wattage do these things actually put out? It seems to me when you buy a Morimoto or when you buy a super expensive light like that, it's real easy to know exactly how many wattage they put out. They put it right on the thing. But when you're buying less expensive lights like I am here, I mean, these were all about $80 a set, these special lighting thing or specialty lighting or whatever it is, the people that are out of business, I think they wanted like 250 bucks for their lights. I don't know that I would have paid 250 bucks, but anyway, it doesn't matter. One way or another, as I've been shopping and I was like, well, I kind of want these lights and those lights, and I've been measuring, and okay, this will fit here and that'll fit there. I was taking a look at what wattage are these lights, because I want to make sure that I get enough light where I want the light. Now, I don't want too much light in the areas where I don't want it. And I was finding, you'll find 2 or 3 different brands, and it looks like they all sell identically the same light, and I'm pretty sure they are all exactly the same light. But some of them will advertise, oh, it's 90 watts, some are 40 watts, this is 15 watt, and it's really hard to tell. And some of the companies that I was looking at, they didn't advertise it at all. I want to say, if I'm remembering right, and I could be wrong, LED Colight, they don't list how many watts their lights are. And when you look at Auxbeam's website, they list it by the pair. So if it's a 45 watt light, they say this is a 90 watt because it's a 90 watt pair. So I'm going to bust out with my handy dandy voltmeter, and it's got this little guy here that you put around. That'll tell you how many amps are running through the wire. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and clamp that around the power wire for the 8-gang switch box. And so it will be measuring both lights at the same time, but that's really easy, just to divide by 2. The way you figure out the wattage, because this will tell me the amps, right? You multiply the amps times the volts. So first thing I'm going to do is measure when it's at idle, because I want the alternator running. I want to make sure that's, kind of as even as we can. I'll measure what the voltage is at idle, and then I'll start flipping the lights on and measuring how many amps are being drawn by that pair of lights. And then we can do the maths, and I can tell you exactly, these things are 15 watts, or these are 40 watts, or whatever it is. I'm gonna get measuring, and we'll figure it out. So there you go. There's an accurate measurement, an exact measurement of how much those lights put out in wattage. Now let's go see what they look like in the dark. Okay, so here we are at night. And we'll go for a drive here in just a second, but I wanted to kind of show the pattern of all of these lights. And so I'm just backed out away from my garage so that you can see the lights actually aimed at the garage. And you can see here the very sharp cutoff lines of these new headlights. These headlights work very well. You can see that they're nice and bright and that they do have a nice razor sharp cutoff so that they can be particularly bright where you want them and they don't blind oncoming drivers. Now, when you switch to high beams on these, that's what you get. You get right there in the middle, go away, now they're back on, and I'm sure that this is good for large distances. I don't know that I'm in love with the high beam pattern like this, especially if I didn't have other accessory bulbs. I really prefer a high beam to just kind of throw a ton of light everywhere. I don't know that I want it that focused. I want to see the whole world. But for that, I've got the Auxbeam 4-inch driving lights. And though these are quoted as being driving lights, really to me they look a lot more like a floodlight, which I'm kind of okay with. And here you are. So you can see that the light, I mean, you can see all the way up to the top of the house. It's all the way over there. It's all the way over there. The light fills in everything. It's not focused. It is not gathered down at the road, kind of where you would want to keep it for driving. I believe that these are much more of a flood pattern. And like I say, I'm actually kind of happy about that, because when you have headlights that do this, high beams that do that, being able to spread the light out everywhere is a really good thing. So next up on the list, these are the LED Colight motorcycle switchable. I'll leave a link down below. They don't do a very good job of naming their products, but they actually work very, very well. So here are the amber fog lights, and you can see there that the yellow light has a very good spread, and it's focused down on the ground underneath the headlights. You can see there, that's all of the light that they put out, and there's the headlights which are up above it. So when you're in the snow, when you're in the rain, when you're in that fog and inclement weather, all of that light is going down across the ground and reflecting back to you from the ground, instead of reflecting back to you from all of the stuff in the air, the rain and the fog and everything else that will instantly blind you. So now if we take these, shut those off, and these are the same lights, switching over to the white color, you can see that they display exactly where the headlights are. So these are very effective as a driving light that you know, here we are with our headlights, and then boom, you want to see more? It focuses the light exactly where you want them to be. So the last set of lights that I have on here is the now defunct, we think they're out of business, special lighting. And these are my ditch lights. And when I turn these on, you can actually see that they've got a little bit of fill in the middle, but most of the light reflects off to the side. So you've got your headlights that are focused in the middle, and then the ditch lights are more focused off to the side, exactly where you want them, off the side of the road, so that you can see whatever you need. The deer over there, you know, whatever's in the ditches, keep it between the ditches. So those function very well for what I'm looking for. So now, let's go for a drive. So hopefully we don't have too much traffic on the road here tonight, so I'm not blinding everybody in the whole world. So here you are, and you can see these are just the low beam headlights. And if I flip on the high beams, I don't know if the GoPro's picking it up, but it focuses the light directly straight down the road where you're going to want to see if you're going super fast or whatever. It is not shining on the trees over there or up there or off to the sides. These headlights, they're doing exactly what they're supposed to do. Again, I don't know that I'm in love with the high beams, but you can see that the low beams stay very focused, and they put all of their light exactly where you want it, right down on the road. They've got great illumination, the color is good, and they've got good fill. Again, back to high beams, low beams, high beams, and there's that. So next up, let's go to our spotlights. Boop. Now we can see the whole world, right? Here again, none of this light is focused and gathered where you want it. You can see all the way up to the top of the trees. You can see all the way off to the left, all the way off to the right. And I really like the way they fill in like everything in the world. I can see off to the left and right, you can see everything. I think these function very, very well as a floodlight to just let you see everything. We'll go ahead and switch off these Auxbeam driving lights, and we'll turn on the white colored fog lights from LED Colight, the motorcycle lights. And bang, look at that. Really hope this carries across in the camera at how much light they focus on exactly where I want to see. Off, on, off, on. The difference, I mean, it sounds stupid to say that the difference is night and day, right? But it really is. What I can see and how far I can see and how clearly I can see with these lights on is spectacular. Really, really happy with these. Now let's switch, same set of lights, but let's go to their yellow configuration. And there you can see that they're lighting up the ground in front of me. If there was any kind of complaint, I would say that the yellow lights are a little bit too low. So the separation between the white and the yellow, as far as how high they aim, I might like to see these aimed a little bit higher. And you can do that by adjusting the housing, but adjusting the housing also moves up the white driving lights, and I've got those placed exactly where I want them. So I really wish that they could, maybe they would have to change the housing and change the focal length of the front lens. I don't know what they would have to do, but I'd really like to see that yellow fog light that's underneath be projected out just a little bit farther. So lastly, let's turn on the ditch lights. And there you go. Now you can see in this shot, you can see very clearly that there's white light on the road in front of me. The headlights are illuminating in front of me, and that's all that's on is the headlights and the ditch lights. And off to the side of the road is illuminated very well. You can see everything you need to see off to the side. If there was a deer, if there was a kid that fell down on his bike, whatever it is, you can see quite clearly off on the side. There they're off, there they're on. It really opens you up to a whole different world that's off to the side of the truck. And now, just for the fun of it, why not? Let's turn everything on. There. Now there's nothing in this world you can't see. I'm pretty sure the camera doesn't display it, but I think we're gonna start burning trees down as we drive past. Settle this down a little bit. And there you are. That's an update on all of the lighting that I have installed, all the upgrades that I've made, and all of the different lights that are going on in here. Obviously, as I've said a million times now, I still want to get some big 7-inch lights kind of up in this area, maybe even just because they look cool. I don't really even know that I need them, but I want them. So a big part of why I made this video and why I installed, well, 1, 2, 3, 4 sets of lights all at the same time, as opposed to just doing one review of one light and then another review and then another review, is I think it's really important when you're purchasing lights like this that you be really kind of honest with yourself and kind of nail down what it is you're going to do with the lights, and whether or not you need them to be really crazy bright or whether you need them to be a little bit softer, whether you need a flood pattern or, you know, a widespread pattern or very focused, or whether, like me, you decide I'm just going to go with like 4 or 5 different sets so that at any given time, when I need light over there, I can turn these lights on. When I need light here, I can turn those lights on. And that really, I think, is the best play. It gets really expensive when you start buying, you know, Baja Designs and all, you know, Morimoto and all of the really expensive. You can have $1,000 per pair of lights, and you know, you got 5, 6, you know, you could be $5,000, $6,000 into lights, and that's the cost of a car. That's expensive. We're Everyman Overland. I don't have that kind of money. I don't have $1,000 for one pair. Granted, Auxbeam sent me these. I got a discount code, but you know, I'm still in $200 or $300 on lights, and then another $100 something or $150 on the light controller. This stuff starts to add up fairly quickly. But you don't have to spend massive amounts of money. You can get fairly decent lighting at a decent price these days. Hopefully, in the near future, I'll meet up with some of my friends that have some of that crazy expensive lighting, and we'll put the 2 trucks next to each other and I'll kind of take a look and see how they compare. Also, to be understood, there's a lot more to an expensive light than how much light comes out of it, right? It's all about lens design and how is the light focused and how useful is the light and where it puts it. How waterproof are the lights? You know, if you drive through a river crossing once and that's it, you don't own lights anymore, well, then was it really worth saving money? Maybe we should have got better ones for going down here in the bumper. And the ones that go up on a roof, you can kind of cheap out on the ones that go up on a roof because, yo, if your roof is underwater, we've got better problems. So anyway, to conclude, how do I feel about all of these? I like all of them individually for different reasons. If I could choose to just have one set of these lights, it would be the Auxbeam motorcycle light. The way it's got that projector lens on the front that really focuses the light exactly where you want it. Switchable between the yellow and the white, which is good. It would be nice if the yellow was kind of adjusted a little bit different, but they've got the two LEDs sitting right next to each other on the board. I don't know if there's much adjusting to do. You just kind of choose, do you want the white light to be perfect or do you want the yellow light to be perfect? And you just kind of go with it. I chose the white. But these special lighting, even though they're out of business, I guess, these ditch lights work very well. They do give a nice, even spread of light off to the side of the truck. And obviously it won't be directly in front of the truck because I have them aimed off to the side, right? And you could aim them where you want. But even if you don't, you can see the top two LEDs are shining through a clear lens. The bottom two are shining through like a rippled lens. So this is what they would call a combo light. And you're actually kind of getting a little bit of the best of the both worlds there. But they function well. I'm happy. They're not too bright. I had considered, Auxbeam actually sent me a pair of these driving lights in white and a pair in yellow. And I had considered running the yellow ones as ditch lights up here. But honestly, I think they would be too bright. The way the Auxbeam 4-inch driving lights projects its light down the road, it is so spread out and it's not controlled, it's not focused, it's not kind of where you want it, it just fills in everything. And they're plenty bright. Mostly I just feel like it would just be too much light to use as a ditch light. They're just too bright, it's too much. I may end up taking those yellow ones and mounting them as chase lights in the back, or maybe I mount them on one of my friend's vehicles so that we, you know, everybody's got good lights. I'll see what we end up doing with them. And as it sits, I'm happy with the 4-inch driving light. As I mentioned earlier, I would really call it more of a floodlight just because it spreads light out everywhere. But if I'm in a situation where I'm at Windrock or I'm somewhere like that we're driving down dirt roads and we're doing 30, 40 miles an hour, the ability of that light to put so much light out there and in all directions, just spreads it out everywhere, makes it a lot easier to see everything that's going on. So if you're going downhill, it's still shining up far enough that you can see what's going on up here or off to the sides. Or if you're going uphill, it's still shining down enough over here. It does a very good job at filling in the whole world with a bunch of light. And I like that. And I want that. That's one of the things that I need out of a light. So the combination of lights that I have going on here, I think is fantastic. You guys got a Corvette. I don't want a Corvette. And of course, the LED Colight, the headlights that I installed in here, huge difference. So this whole project started because we moved out here to the upstate of South Carolina, and we're kind of out in the country and there's no streetlights or nothing out here, and I was having a miserable time trying to see where I was going. Had I just installed these headlights a few months ago, I may not have gone through with all of these other lights because I'd have still been able to see. But somehow I got myself convinced that, I need 7,000 pairs of lights and put them all in the truck all at the same time and burn out the alternator. That's my goal. So really, that's it. Thank you to Auxbeam for sending me these lights, both sets of lights. I will end up putting both of them to use. These are gonna stay right where they're at on Janky. Really happy with the way they work. I have an Auxbeam light controller, which I paid for out of my own money, but that works fantastic. I wish somebody made more stickers for it, like the little stickers that you put over the switches. They don't have a single one that says ditch, right? Ditch lights. Why wouldn't you have? I want one that says ditch. Thank you to LED Colight for helping out with this. I mean, I still had to pay some of the lights, but they gave me a pretty solid discount on the lights for being able to make the video. The headlights work fantastic. Those little motorcycle lights are the money. I love them. They're fantastic. Thank you to John Tobias for selling me these specialty lighting light pods. He already had them. He actually works for Morimoto now, so look up John if you want some really high quality lights. If you got the money for Morimoto, whoo, there's nothing better. Man, them things are nice. But thank you, John, for selling these to me so that I could make this video, and I'm actually going to end up keeping them on the truck. I'm going to end up using them because I like them. But he had these used. He sold them to me for a fantastic deal. So thank you, John. I really appreciate it. And to all of you out there watching, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, or hey, how did you do this? Wire that up or whatever, or what do you think about this or that? Or why didn't you put them up next to the windshield so that they shine on your hood and blind you? All the questions, send them my way. But thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.